Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello, welcome to It's Alive Live Podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they're ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script or maybe a comic book. I'm your host, the outlaw Dr. HR, Smoking Steam THC, and with me as always is my very own scream queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smoking Steam, the inner hard expert, the guts and gore, the gorgeous, sexy Amy Rose.
Hi.
So, we had planned this week to go and cover a Christian militia group by the name of the Grail.
We did.
And then the Pope died.
Yep.
And we got scared. We thought we gave him the stroke because we've been giving him a hard time for the last, I don't know, month or two.
The community in particular.
So let's give them a break this week. We'll start talking shit about them again once they start electing their new guy. It should be by next week. They should be on the road to that, or if not, have them already. So we're going to switch things up this week, and instead of getting religious, we're going to get sexy.
Are we?
All right.
So I know the title might lead you to believe we are going in hard on the Christians again, but don't let the name fool you. Jesus DeSade is the farthest thing from holy you're going to find.
In fact, the only thing holy about the Sad is the many people, creatures, and things that he has put his penis in.
Okay.
So who is Jesus DeSade and why are we talking about him today? Well, let's get into it.
Born John D. Holmes in New York City on the 4th of November 1969 to Melvin and Janice, the life of DeSade was certainly less than normal and less than stable. His father Melvin was a small-time crook with loose ties to the feared Vitti crime family, while his mother Janice was a former model who dabbled in the adult industry from time to time, primarily in the softcore market. Known in the crime underworld as Pretty Boy Melvin, John's father took part in small-time drug dealing, debt collection, car theft, and was known to knock off corner stores and off licenses when in a pinch for cash.
Do you know what me and my friends used to call softcore porn when we were teenagers?
Titty-licking porn.
Titty-licking porn. Because you never got to see any penetration, just lots of titty-licking.
It was usually on the channels. Yeah, Bravo, yeah. Better muscle than brains. Melvin often found himself on the wrong side of the law and was quite often caught in the act when left to plan his own scores. This meant Melvin spent more time behind bars than in front of them, leaving his wife Janice holding the baby and the bills while he got a bed and 3 hot meals as a reward for his stupidity. This was the reason the once beautiful Janice was forced to stay in the adult industry where she suffered from Melvin's sins. But this is the 70s, and the image of a porn star was generally young, slim, and big-breasted. And at this point, while only in her 30s, Janice was starting to age out of the industry, resulting in her getting rougher and rougher parts to pay the bills.
Obviously, MILFs hadn't come around yet.
No, that's what a noughties phenomenon, 90s phenomenon.
Whenever fucking American Pie came out, and we learned what the word MILF meant. So, Melvin was actually on remand for a murder charge in 1969 when John was born and wouldn't see his son until he was a year old and got released when the case fell through. Melvin vowed then when he held his firstborn that he would never go back to prison again and vowed to Janice that her days of being a porn star were in the past. He would work any job he had to provide for his new budding family.
But unfortunately for Melvin, there weren't a lot of jobs available at the time that would accommodate an ex-con, let alone a repeat offender. Because of this, it wasn't long before Melvin was back working on the streets and Janice was back working the sheets. All right. And it really wasn't long before Melvin was back in cuffs, caught for trying to sell smack to an undercover agent. But Melvin, being a man of his word, would not go back to prison for this arrest, instead choosing to become a confidential informant for the cop who busted him, A decision that would land him a bullet in the head as he sat in his car waiting for his police handler to arrive on November 4th, 1971, which was John's second birthday.
It's always a fucking undercover agent, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
They say that about hitmen.
What?
If you're getting a hitman online, it's always going to be an undercover agent. But I feel like back in the day, if you're selling, because obviously before phones, you had to like stand in a specific street corner to sell drugs. But everybody's going to know that's the drug corner, because otherwise, how are you going to get business? Which means you are surely going to have undercovers coming up to you constantly.
Yep. It just feels like entrapment.
You kind of are doing the illegal thing. I mean,
But you are doing the illegal thing, but you know, as in like, okay, it's a great way of catching them, but I just don't understand how it holds up in court if you put an ad up online and you're like, oh yeah, hitman available, and somebody approaches you. Is that not entrapment?
No, because
they're already out looking for it.
They're already out looking
Okay. No,
for
I was just
it,
curious. I mean, I don't think it's the right thing. I just wasn't understand how the legality worked when you're advertising.
Watching that shit. You one from is it Ghost Adventures or Ghost something or other?
Saw that lately, yeah.
One of the members of that, his wife tried to have him whacked.
Did you ever see the guy though that they brought? Like, you know, the wife went to the other undercover agent, but it got so deep.
Undercover?
All right, well, this guy that I'm talking about was, and it got in so deep that your man actually had to like get down into a hole and have his hands tied behind his back, and they actually took the pictures to send it to the wife as proof, I think, for the money to pass hands or something like that. And he said it was the most bizarre thing in his life, knowing that these pictures that he was faking with these undercover cops was going back to the person that he was married to as proof that she had him killed. Like, imagine how
I've seen the exact same thing done to the Hells Angels. Jay Dobbins, I can't remember his name, but he's one of the only people, he claims to be one of the only people he was nearly patched into the Hells Angels.
Yeah.
They pulled him just as he was about to get his patch or something like that. And one of the things was they had to kill a guy, so they basically had one of the FBI had one of the cut off jackets the gang members wore. They had one of them from an arrest.
Yeah.
So they put it on another guy and had him turn his face to the side so they couldn't see it properly. And they did up the blood in the back, and it was a picture of that. It was supposed to be an executed ex-member. Yeah. So that's common enough.
Bizarre. Yeah.
So obviously, if things weren't good every time this went to jail, this guy went to jail, him being dead probably isn't going to help him.
No.
And this was kind of where it's Janice, isn't it?
Janice, yeah.
She would kind of have to take on a bigger role in the porn industry so that she could obviously afford the essentials like a roof over their head, food in their mouth. Because I imagine back in the 70s, they probably didn't make a lot of money in the porn industry.
Probably not. No.
I mean, I would assume the internet has been a bit of a big one for them in terms of making cash.
Yeah, I mean, was Linda Lovelace probably the first big porn star?
First mainstream
porn star, yeah.
She was Deep Throat, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
I think there was another one, but I think Deep Throat was her most famous one.
Yeah, and what was the name of the girl that did Debbie Does Dallas?
Okay, that's what I was thinking of. That
was
what was her name? Debbie, obviously. No, I'm joking.
But you see, no one knows her real name then either, because she's one completely out of
Bambi Woods.
That was it. She's completely out of the thing now. She's like went into hiding and stuff like that from him. Not hiding in a bad way, but like she's completely left it behind her and wouldn't even acknowledge that name if you approached her with it.
She apparently, her disappearance fueled speculation that she died of an overdose in 1986, but I'm not 100% sure.
The documentary. Remember we saw a documentary about this?
Yeah, vaguely.
It might have been The Dark Side of Porn or something like that, but they were talking about it, and it was like a few people that said, no, I know her personally.
She's still alive and well, like, yeah.
Keeping her shit there herself and regrets doing this and doesn't want to be a part of it. But at the same time, her taking on a bigger role in porn, it meant more money was coming in as well. So they were actually financially secure at this period of time, because she kind of, I suppose when Melvin was around, it was kind of, oh, we need to pay a bill, I'm going to go take a job. Whereas now it was, this is my job. This is my career. So she went full on into it and was willing to do everything that was asked of her. So especially, I suppose, at that age where you think, I don't have much time left here. I got to fucking maximize this as much as I can. So I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
The only problem is she didn't really have a babysitter for John. So he spent a lot of time on that same set.
Yeah.
And saw a lot from a very young age. And I mean, you got to remember, the reason stuff like OnlyFans are so popular now
It's because it works for the girls.
is because of the treatment the women were dealing with on the set. So he is growing up learning. I mean, we talked about incels on It's a Live Action this week. Yeah. It's a lot of that. He's getting a lot of this toxic masculinity. He's seeing the men run the business and treat the women a certain way to get what they want from them. And straight up not doing as the women ask when they ask. You know, if the women say, I don't want to do this, you're still doing it. You know, we'll find a way to make you do it. I mean, isn't that a big
coerced?
But isn't like anal rape a big problem in porn? Where they wouldn't want to do anal, and the next thing the scene would start, and the guy would just right in there, and it's tough luck.
That's it's still recent problem. Like I've heard interviews and stuff like that. Like with I think it's Dean, or it's some kind of name on James, a play on James Dean's name. But he was one of the people that was kind of being investigated over it, that there was women and they didn't want to do the anal scene. But like you said, next thing they were doing the anal scene.
Yep. Whether they liked it or not. And I suppose once you're in the middle of it, you just want to get your paycheck at that point. So it's just keep going and let it be done.
Finish the scene.
The worst
kind of thing.
It's over now. And it would be here that he kind of take on more of his nickname, his middle name of Dee, and be Dee Holmes, because all these porn guys kind of latched on. He's like a mascot for this porn company, like, you know. So all the men were like treating him like he was their little kid, like, but not the greatest role models. Not the kind of people you want teaching your kid how to, you know,
be a man.
Yeah. That one. That's it.
And although the industry was good to a young Dee Holmes, his mother Janice, on the other hand, was feeling the emotional as well as physical toll of working in a very demanding industry at a very low level.
Well, I would assume because there's nothing against that job, but I would assume if you're doing that job and you don't want to be doing that job,
it's going to be an emotional
it's
toll.
Going to fuck you over. Yeah. I'd assume if you get into it with the goal of being someone in this industry, it's not going to affect you as badly as being someone who has to
work in the industry.
Do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not like in there like Jenna Jameson with a fucking 10-year plan or something like that, knowing where you're going to be in a few years' time, I'm going to go from here to director to producer, director to mainstream.
Very easy to get eaten up.
Yeah. And that's what happened here. And especially in this time as well, in the 70s, where you're not going to have as many of them move from this job to the next.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're doing what I was calling titty licking more softcore stuff, because there was a lot of actresses who did softcore stuff and worked their way up. Once you get into the more hardcore stuff, you're kind of typecast.
Yeah.
And that's it. You're not really getting out of it and breaking into Hollywood after that, because it's bad on the image of the movie and she's not a real actress and all that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the way they dealt with it and the way Janice dealt with it was drug use.
Okay.
Dull the senses and try and get through it. And this would again start to financially affect the family, who had been stable for a short period of time now because of her putting in the extra work. But when that extra money is now going to party and drinking and drugs and stuff like that, Dee himself is seeing money start to slip away and seeing his standard of life start to go down, and he blames her for that. Not the producer supplying her with drugs, not the director pumping her with the drugs to keep her happy and keep her performing, but he's blaming her for being weak and needing them as a crutch to move on and move forward in life. And he doesn't see her job as an issue. He sees her as the issue.
Yeah.
And again, this kind of shows that kind of toxic masculinity thought again being kind of pushed onto them, like, you know?
Yeah. And his resentment towards his mother would only get worse with her growing addiction. Like the more she took, the less she worked, the less Dee had, like you said.
That's it.
Yeah.
And being poor as a child sucks.
It does, because you're seeing your friends more so as than when you're an adult, I think, because you see your friends with the toys and you don't really have an understanding.
And on top of that, it's rare you're going to find another adult who will insult you for being broke. Whereas a kid has absolutely no hold back on it. So if you don't have the latest clothes or the latest toy or the latest gadget, you're poor.
Exactly.
Your family is poor.
Yeah.
You're broke. And, you know?
Yeah.
And if they found out what their mother did for money, it's like, well, your mother's a drunk and alcoholic and a slut. You know? And so you're dealing with all of this, and that's molding his viewpoint towards everything. And he's trying. And I mean, again, you can see then how he ends up going the route he goes, because if you are watching your mother and she's working hard in the porn industry and you have everything you ever wanted, and then suddenly she starts slipping and fucking up and you start losing stuff, well, then what's your talk going to be?
Yeah.
I'll get into this business and I'll be the top of the game and I'll make loads of money and it'll be great. You know?
Yeah.
I just won't fall into the trapping she did, but he does.
He does. So unfortunately for young D.D. Holmes, his birthday would prove once again to be the harbinger of doom. And on his 18th birthday, exactly 16 years after his father, his mother Janice, even, why do we keep calling her Janet? Passed away from a drug overdose just hours after celebrating her son's entrance into manhood at a party on the set of her latest scene.
See, there's the problem right there
That's
from
the
the
problem.
Yeah. If you're there watching your mom do a scene at a porno set
On your 18th birthday.
and if you're the mother and you see your son celebrating his 18th birthday on that set, you're probably going to take an extra bump that day too.
Probably.
And that was pretty much what happened here. He claimed himself at the time that he actually felt nothing for her by now. At this point, he had seen her for years drinking, drugging, and sleeping with all these men, and he just saw it as, what is she to me? She hasn't taken care of me. She's nothing to me. Do you know?
She was the way she knew how to, by trying to bring the money in.
The way she could.
The way she was, yeah.
And to show how little respect he had for his mother, he turned 18 that night. She died that night. And the next morning, he was on set to film his first scene at 18 years of age.
His first porn scene?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you would have to imagine as well that she probably didn't want this life for him.
No,
she's working hard,
I
she's
don't
trying to
think
get him out of it.
anyone
So
would.
him jumping in here the next day and completely ignoring his own emotions as well, and his own dealing with the trauma of your mom dying in this way, it's going to affect you mentally.
Yeah.
It's going to fuck you up mentally.
Absolutely.
No, as I've said, John D.D. Holmes had a view of how life was going to be for him, right?
Mm.
He watched the sheep in their 9 to 5, happy with a beer and a blowjob every now and again, and to see him by. But to him, this would be a life of futility and boredom, and he couldn't imagine anything worse than this.
Yep.
So he was going to take things to a new level.
Yep. And it was this thinking that would lead him to the decision to leave John D.D. Holmes behind for good. Seeing his former title as something from a former life, he decided to move on in life with a name that would draw attention. A name that would sum up his very essence. A name that would make you stop and think of a higher power or a sexual god.
Oh, yeah.
It was in that mind that he landed on the name Jesus DeSade, a combination of the Christian Messiah and one of history's most depraved men, the Marquis de Sade.
See, I thought when you're talking about like a sexual god, something like Thor's hammer.
Thor's hammer. Oh.
You're about to get Thor's hammer. Just call himself Thor and call his penis hammer. Job done.
So the Marquis de Sade, he was a French novelist and philosopher. And after abandoning a military career at the end of the 7 Years' War, he married and became involved in a life of debauchery and outrageous scandal with prostitutes and with young local people he abducted, for which he was repeatedly imprisoned, once narrowly escaping execution.
If you abduct someone and have sex with them now, you're probably going to spend most of your life in prison. So this repeatedly shows how easygoing they were in France. Huh?
Well, he was also noble born, so that kind of counts for a lot. But despite his noble birth, he supported the French Revolution, which he saw as representing political liberation on a level parallel to the sexual liberation he himself represented.
This guy would have gotten on well in the 60s.
Yep. He was twice sent to the insane asylum at Charenton. That was in 1789 to 1790 and 1801 to 1814, where he would eventually die. He overcame boredom and anger in prison and the asylum by writing sexually graphic novels and plays. The 120 Days of Sodom was a tale of 4 libertines who kidnap victims for a non-stop orgy of perversion. That is actually, it's a movie. It's called Salo. I'm pretty sure it's available on Disney Plus. I have to double check that. In his most,
right.
Actually, I think there's a guy from The Godfather in it. I need to check this up. In his most famous novel,
frisky.
Justine, and Justine there's actually a very good movie about this with Joaquin Phoenix. Justine.
Jesus Christ, this guy's got a load of movies
You
made about
walked
him.
in on me watching this movie, and
Turn off that smut.
no, because Justine is dead, and it's either the Marquis de Sade or it's Joaquin Phoenix having sex with her. Basically, you're like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "Oh, it's a thing about the Marquis de Sade."
This is girl porn.
In his most famous novel, Justine, the heroine, that was played by Kate Winslet, the heroine suffers because she fails to perceive that there is no moral God and that desire is the only reality.
So this guy was a bit of a... Was he been an atheist at the time? Would he have been against God at the time? Would he have...
Yeah.
He just believed you're here and just enjoy it while you're here kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of a life of excess kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like 120 Days of Sodom, the debauchery gets worse and worse and worse and worse as the tale goes on. I'm pretty sure it kind of ends with kind of like snuff things. But his other works include Philosophy in the Bedroom and Crimes of Passion. His reputation and writings gave rise to the term sadism. And I will now say that Jesus DeSade lived his life much closer to the marquee than he did Jesus.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I am curious. You like all this Marquis DeSade stuff. I know you do. What's his opinion? What's your opinion of him?
Oh, he was a horrible motherfucker. I don't. As in, I find it
movies.
Interesting. I mean, there is a lot of his writings were burnt during his lifetime or just after his lifetime.
Do you think that the period of time he lived in maybe had an effect on it? Do you think he would have been happier in our lifetime?
He would have been happier in our lifetime. I think that there's another movie with Johnny Depp in it called The Libertine, and the Marquis de Sade would have been seen as a libertine. I'm not too sure if it's based on it is, sorry, but it's based on the Earl of Rochester. He would have written political plays and all that. He ends up dying of syphilis after he loses his nose and all that. But I think it's two men, very similar in two different countries around the same time period that were kind of men before their time. I don't necessarily think that saying that in a good way, as in, but they would have fit in more with they would have had a larger community around them, kind of in this day. I mean, like the whole like indecency laws and stuff like that back then, they'd have become social pariahs, I'd say, but they were noble, so that's why
they got away with a lot more.
They got away with a lot more, exactly. Okay. So Jesus made his name throughout the late 80s and early 90s, working his way from performer to performer director and to performer director studio head, making his name along the way in some of the most controversial and depraved titles, the names to which are both disgusting and hilarious.
Yep. Here are a few of my favorites, and I can't stress enough, these titles are 100% real. We got Ultra Kinky 79, blowing in her colon.
Bowling
in her colon. That makes more sense. No, that doesn't make more sense. 79. So you got to see the first 78 or you won't understand what's going on.
Oh, God.
Once, twice, three times a labia.
Once, twice.
Three times a labia. Moulin Splooge.
I'd be interested in seeing that. Moulin Rouge is one of my favorite movies.
Rimorama. Hung Wankenstein. Don't know how I feel about that. Why Things Burn.
Because you didn't use enough lube.
Anal Chiropractor. Dead Men Don't Wear Rubbers. Acid Sex. The Perverted Adventures of Super Dave Volume 1.
Did it get a sequel?
I don't know.
Unlike...
And that's not the same Super Dave either. Super Dave was a comedian. I can't remember his actual name. He used to be on Curb Your Enthusiasm. You'd know him. There he is.
Super Dave is Bob Einstein. He died.
Yeah. Do you remember he was on Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I only know him older. I wouldn't have recognized him in the young pictures now at all. Yeah.
It's a different Super Dave.
Are we certain about that? I'm joking. Don't know. Unlike his mother, who had always been half in, half out of the industry her entire career, Jesus took to the business like a duck to water, and as it turned out, was cutthroat as a businessman, both metaphorically and, if some rumors are to be believed, quite literally at times.
Yeah, you know what they say, if you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's what the porn industry was for him. It was his passion, his obsession, his everything. So he was like a fucking workaholic. Do you remember I told you like Paul Heyman used to talk about CM Punk and say like, I knew this guy had a love for this business because when I was editing the show, he'd be over my shoulder asking me questions. When I was timing out the show, he'd be over my shoulder asking me questions. When we were cutting promos, he'd be watching everybody's promos. When there was matches on, he's watching everyone's matches. This was the equivalent with DeSade. He had his hand in he's fingering every pie, like, you know. He did the editing, he did the writing, he did the producing, he did the marketing, he did the performing, because he loved the fucking performing. This guy was, I mean, Russell Brand at his worst kind of fucking debauchery, like, you know.
Yeah.
That guy was up in court this week.
He was. How did he get on? What?
They give him bail.
What's he been charged with?
Rape. Multiple.
And he got bail.
Yeah. No, he's claiming he's a good Christian now, and he'd never do something like that.
But that's fine. But did he not only turn good Christian after all this was happening, or was he a good Christian beforehand?
I think he's been a good Christian for the last, I don't know, year or two, couple of years.
He looks like one of those, you know, those Indian guys in An Idiot Abroad that have like held their hand up in the air for the last 30 years. That's what he strikes me as.
Full stop. Anyway, on top of all this, DeSade was kind of getting into the porn industry at about the time the internet was starting to slowly trickle in. So, like, I mean, by the early 90s, I know to us, it seems like the internet wasn't around at that point.
Oh, no, it was.
But the Americans had their kind of hand in on the internet from day fucking one, like, you know?
Yeah.
So he saw this and he instantly started marketing towards that kind of demographic, like knowing that this is the area it was going to the point where he like invested in all this kind of stuff. And then on top of that, he made wise investments when it came to influential people. He wanted to be powerful. So to be powerful, he knew he needed to have information on everybody. Something on everybody. So, I mean, we saw this as well with Hugh Hefner.
Yes.
Hugh Hefner, it was allegedly, Hugh Hefner used to kind of get people to go off into, he used to offer them bunnies. And when the bunnies went in to sleep with him or fool around with him, and they'd have all the toys in the world in the room, and they got to do whatever they wanted. But what they didn't realize was that Hugh had a camera on him. And if they fucked him around afterwards, he'd have video evidence of stuff they've done. DeSade was the same. But what he would do is he would find the most powerful people, politicians, judge, mob bosses, celebrities, and he would offer them anything they wanted.
Yep.
Any sexual thing they wanted in the world, he would provide. So he got a name for being the man to go to when you had some sort of
sexual need.
Yeah. Something that wasn't just some untraditional sexual need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kinks before kinks were normal, I suppose. I mean, they're more normal these days. You know, these days you ask somebody, it's like, well, everybody has a kink.
Everybody does have a kink.
But back in this time, it was still kind of your kink stayed hidden. And he knew how to deal with that. So he'd provide you with what you were looking for, while at the same time knowing that this gave him one up on you.
Okay.
Do you know?
Yeah, yeah. So by the time DeSade turned 25, he was filthy rich and loaded with very influential contacts and had everything he desired at his fingertips. But that's the funny thing about desire. The more that you get, the more that you want, and the easier it is to come by, the less satisfying the conclusion to his quest felt.
This would lead Jesus to chasing the sexual dragon for the rest of his life. First, starting with the basics, different types of girls, different sizes, different cultures, different taste. And when that wasn't enough, he'd switch to men, then both, then groups.
Yeah, so from there, he went through the list of kings, hitting everything from A to Z, basically.
It's said that by 1997, if you could think it, DeSade could screw it. Or at least fit it inside himself somehow.
His depravity seemed to know no limits, and it was that fact that would see him embroiled in his first legal battle when he was accused of a range of crimes, including sexual assault, rape, child abuse, sex with a minor, bestiality, and distributing obscene movies. There was also talk of necrophilia charges, but the evidence never led to a charge.
You know, if that stuff was happening now, it would probably be a huge case that would be on in the media right now for everybody to look at.
Probably. The jury thing would probably have started.
Probably today. Yeah. Now, as we said earlier, this was a well-connected man. So after a little bit of an early media storm, DeSade called in a few favors, handed out a few donations, and the charges all went away, as did the mainstream media attention.
What didn't go away was DeSade's unquenchable libido, but learning from his mistakes and having the finance and investments to let his money work for him, DeSade retired to his newly purpose-built compound. The ultimate orgy pad, DeSade had the home fitted with every kind of tool and device you can think of, from dildos to X-frames, whips, shackles, ball gags and chains, and a library of porn that would make Hugh Hefner himself blush. The home was staffed with sex-friendly staff, and specialists were employed to source and secure new and strange sexual experiences for the man of the house. Animals were a personal favourite of the former pornographer, with claims being made that he had made his way through the vast majority of quadrupedal and bipedal animals, with one witness claiming she once saw him go to bed with an armadillo. How many bipedal animals are there?
Huh?
How many bipedal animals are there?
There's gorillas, monkeys,
Oh, yeah.
I suppose. That's it, is it?
Ducks?
Yeah.
Birds?
Suppose, yeah, birds, yeah.
Cool.
That would make sense, yeah.
An armadillo.
How would an armadillo
Armadillos
work?
are really dangerous to get close to.
That's
because
all right. I thought you were going to say armadillos are really sexy, okay?
Did I make an S sound? I meant to say dangerous. Yeah, because they're the only animals beside ourselves that can actually contract leprosy, and it's rampant in the armadillo population. So if you come up against an armadillo,
So if you ride an armadillo, you're getting an STD.
your knob might fall off.
If you ride an armadillo, your knob should fall off.
Yeah.
Rude.
Did you just say rude?
That should be the rude.
Oh,
I
I
said.
thought you said that's rude. It sure is.
The least you can do is take your penis off after fucking the armadillo.
The least you can do is ask him. The sex house of Jesus DeSade was situated in San Francisco, as DeSade believed it to be the modern location of Gomorrah. Gomorrah, which you will often hear paired with the city of Sodom, and where the word sodomite comes from, were cities which were destroyed by God due to their sinful behavior.
Yeah, the God that forgives everybody and says you shouldn't kill people.
Turned your one into, just for turn around to look
Yeah, we'll
into
get
a
to that.
statue of pillar.
Pillar of salt.
Yeah, statue of pillar. Yeah, pillar of
Statue of
salt.
pillar.
Pillar of salt.
It's one pillar on the other. Anyway, so the story goes, I checked it in the Bible. It's there. This is all from
It
the
is?
Bible, this is. After God comes to Abraham and tells him of his plan to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah and all its wicked inhabitants, Abraham asks of the righteous that live there and if God will spare them. God refuses because, fuck him. But after a little negotiating, agrees to spare the city if 10 righteous people can be found living amongst them. So they got to go and find 10 decent people in these two cities, and then he won't destroy them.
I feel like this is going to be an over-exaggeration.
God then sent 2 angels to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot, the son of Abraham, welcomed them into his house. But all the men of the town then surrounded the house and demanded that he surrender the visitors, so that they may know them carnally.
So they want to have sex with the angels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Lot sounds like a bit of a prick here, but what can you do? Lot offers the mob his virgin daughters to do with them as you please. So that's nice.
Well, Lot learned that from fecking Abraham.
But they refuse and threaten to do worse to Lot. The angels strike the crowd blind. Because, again, all about forgiveness.
Yep.
If he's an all-powerful God, why didn't he just go down there and scare him into getting out of their ways? I mean,
Because I
you're
don't
proving
think
the
he's an
existence-
all-powerful fucking God.
I don't know. The angels tell Lot the outcry against its people has become great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. And that's in Genesis 19:13. The next morning, because Lot had lingered, the angels took Lot's family and his 2 daughters by the hand and out of the city and told him to flee to the hills and not to look back. Then God rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities and all that grew on the ground were destroyed. This is in Genesis 19:24-25.
Sounds like a nuclear bomb.
I think there's something about it here. Hey, I've written here for you to say.
Yep. Now, funny enough, it's believed that these cities did exist and were destroyed, but rather than an angry God raining fire down on homosexuals like Christians believe, modern scholars say the more likely event was a massive earthquake in the Dead Sea that would have caused sulfur to fall from the sky onto the cities.
So that makes sense, right? That makes a lot more sense than... you bummed
and
the guy, so now we're going to fucking burn
And the
you.
earthquake would have kind of stoked a volcano, and then the sulfur came down. Is
Well,
that what
that's
they're
what they
getting
reckon,
at?
yeah. That's what scientists actually believe happened to
Yeah.
these cities, because they weren't supposed to have been there. This is supposed to have happened.
yeah.
But this is the
more logical fucking reasoning behind it. But unfortunately, bigoted minds have used this passage of the Bible to prove that God hates gays, as they believe the men asking to know the angels carnally and refusing the virgin daughters was proof that the men were gay, even though I didn't see it specified anywhere that the two angels were men.
Are angels not without sex? Is that just in my head?
So, I don't
Because
know.
I mean, if they have however many eyes and however many wings and all that jazz, how do you tell them?
What image did they take when they came down to earth, though, I suppose?
Oh, I thought biblically accurate angels were literally just like a ball of eyeballs and wings.
Yeah, so you can't be gay for wanting to bang them. You're just, I don't know, into weird shit.
That's your kink. Biblically accurate angels.
So that's just homophobic minds making connections that suit their agenda, I think.
Yep.
Or else they're letting their own fantasies of buff angel men.
Fabio!
Just, oh, it's three. Yeah. Either way, it was from this story that the pejorative term of sodomite came from, referencing homosexual sex, both oral and anally. I always thought it was just anally.
So did I. I've heard the Barks throw around the word sodomy though, and every time they say it makes me laugh a tiny bit.
Oh, yeah. It does sound bad, to be fair, when you say sodomy. But on top of that, sodomy is also bestiality.
It is.
So,
it is. It's kind of got a wide kind of...
butt sex, oral sex, animal sex, all the one to these tolerant, patient, forgiving Christians.
Christ. Either way, this story didn't turn anyone off the acts, and most of all, Jesus DeSade, who saw the actions of the citizens of Gomorrah more as goals than warnings and wanted to bring the spirit of the fallen town back to the city of free love and sexuality, San Francisco. I said earlier that DeSade made his name and connections through private parties for the elite, and although he abandoned the mainstream porn business, he still held private events at his compound where he would fill any request. Making personal videos for his rich and powerful friends filled with kinks not available to the average man, mainly due to their highly illegal nature. The parties were called freak-off parties.
Yep. Sure
They were invite only and came with a menu of debauchery for each themed event. Taking place monthly, DeSade would supply sex toys, sex workers, porn stars, drugs, animals, kink specialists of every nature, and the most unfortunate of them all, children.
Yep.
For years, he would get away with any sexual desire he pleased because he was the supplier of the most depraved experiences any man could desire. And because of that, he knew every top power player's dirty little secrets. And while he never broke that trust with any of his clients, the understanding was always there. He could if he wanted. And if he did, he could topple empires like a flick of a switch.
See, I'd love to know what celebrities are involved with all this. I think that's the most interesting thing about what's happening in the news lately. We won't mention names here, but I can't wait until they start bringing in co-conspirators to this case.
Oh, there's going to be a few. There's already been one named.
There's a bunch of them that they apparently have warrants for that they're waiting to serve.
Wait until they get more into the court case, do you
they're
think?
saying that we'll all be very, very shocked when those warrants start to get served. So
Oh my God.
it's yet to get more exciting. So using this power, DeSade played in the shadows and fed his addiction, floating through life one hole at a time. Truthfully though, he probably would have lived a lifetime with no comeback if it wasn't for a case of bad luck and a lost load of heroin. Before we move on, Jesus is here. He's going to give you one thing. Well, what are you going to ask him for?
Sexually?
Well, he can provide you with anything you want. What do you want?
I just want to be happy.
Give this girl a lollipop.
My thing would, I suppose, if God is all powerful and Jesus, hang on. Yeah, no, wrong thing. This isn't God's son we're talking about. It doesn't matter.
What do you want? We want Megan Thee Stallion. Sydney Sweeney, she can come along. She's all right. Darcy the male girl. Just bring them all
No,
through.
give me a second. There has to be something.
What are you going to do with them? Chill. Watch TV, watch movies, watch horror movies and smoke weed.
DeSade, being used to everything coming to him at the ring of a bell, entrusted all his arrangements to his personal assistant, Christopher Harcourt. a man he met on the set of his 1996 production Sex Dwarf. I suppose was that like Red Dwarf, except
I don't know.
it was a satire.
I've never seen it.
The pair hit it off, and Harcourt was his right-hand man from that day on.
Sorry, I'm Googling this to see if I can actually...
Yeah, I'm
There's
curious.
a song, obviously. Sex Dwarf lyrics.
No
What are the
way.
lyrics to Sex Dwarf?
Some of these songs, the more sexually explicit songs like that, are actually from the 1920s and 1930s.
Isn't it nice, sugar and spice,
What's
luring disco
1981?
dollies to a life of vice. I can make a film and make you my star. You'd be natural the way you are. The chorus is sex dwarf, sex dwarf, sex dwarf, sex dwarf, sex dwarf, sex dwarf, sex dwarf.
Soft cell. That's who it is.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I gotta look that song up afterwards. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah. So Harcourt took care of everything, booking the sex workers, replacing the toys, even ensuring that the home was stocked with lubricant and baby oils at all time, never letting the supply run any lower than 1,000 bottles at a time.
Madness.
Who needs 1,000 bottles of baby oil?
How many babies are you planning on having? He was also in charge of finding the drugs for the party, and just like everything else he did for DeSade, he did it well. But the drug game is the drug game, and suppliers die, get locked up, go on the lam pretty regularly, meaning that Harcourt quite often had to find and vet new suppliers to cater the monthly events.
He was lucky 99% of the time, and using connections found the most solid dealers with the cleanest backgrounds. But as we all know, being lucky with drugs 9 out of 10 times still means you get stung at least once every now and again. And after a very lucky run of time, the luck would run out for Harcourt, and in turn DeSade in 1997, when the latest suppliers would lose the heroin, find it again, but in the process lead an angry boyfriend, his preacher friend, and his girlfriend to DeSade's last party, and they in turn would draw local police and a special classified government agency along with them.
Yes.
So, what happened to the heroin?
What did happen to that?
Whew, this gets complicated. Okay, where are we here?
I'm all ears.
Okay, we're kind of near the end of the story here, so that's okay. This week's going to be a bit shorter, but that's because we needed to do something together, because this is what we're about to talk to here leads us right into the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I
This
think
is the groundwork we're laying this week.
Well, not really. It's just our way to not pile it on the Christians again this week.
Okay.
But they are here. They're here at the end. They're always involved with everything. Not piling on the Christians. We've been ratting on those bastards since the start of this fucking episode. We haven't let them go once. We went on about Sodom and Gomorrah. We gave them no break.
But it's
Poor
a
Pope
genuine
Francis spinning in
question. How
his
can
new
God
grave.
be pro-life if he's turning people into pillars and drowning them?
Yeah. Oh, we never really mentioned that. Yeah. When what did I say the guy's name was again? Lot.
Lot and his wife and his
his
daughters.
wife and his 2 daughters. So his wife stopped to turn around, even though the angels
Yes,
told him
you would.
not to
It's your
look back.
home. Everybody you've ever known has been
But
fucking
the
killed.
angels told her not to look
Fuck
back.
the angels.
She stopped and looked back, and then God turned her into a pillar of salt. For
That's
her
not
trouble.
very forgiving. That seems like a very trivial thing to kill somebody over.
Well, that's what I've been saying for fucking ages. Anywho. So, the drug dealers that were got for the heroin, they, for some reason, decided this time they were going to use a drug mule to get the drugs to DeSade. Or they felt like it was too hot around them, so they gave the drugs to a drug mule. Who was this woman who was already a drug addict? Someone bought off him.
Okay.
And every drug dealer will tell you the stupidest thing you can do is ask a drug
To a
fucking
user.
addict
Yeah,
to
yeah.
fucking mind your drugs. Because it's not going to be there when you
No.
come back. In the process, this woman died of a drug overdose because of having these drugs in the house constantly. The boyfriend she had is a guy. It was her boyfriend, but he traveled a lot. They had a relationship where it was when he was in town they were together, but they were very close and had been together for a very long period of time.
Okay.
At this point, they said they had met at Woodstock or something like that. So that's 30 years previous.
Yeah.
He comes to the house, sees that she's dead, and at the same time, these dealers come looking for their drugs, and he figures out that they're who they're supplying.
Okay.
So he's going to go look for the sad guy, and he wants to fucking get his own back for killing his girlfriend. in the meantime, this government agency has been watching this trio of people, the boyfriend, the preacher, and the preacher's girlfriend. They've been watching them and following them around for reasons we'll get into over the next 3 weeks, because it's way too fucking complicated to get into right now. The three of them figured out where the drugs were going to, and they went to DeSade's party to try and face DeSade and pay him back for what he's done to this guy. Cassidy was the guy's name. Prunchius Cassidy's an Irishman. Prunchius.
Is that Francis?
I have no idea. I really don't know. I've heard Prunchius loads of times, but I never really knew what it was. Anyway, Prunchius Cassidy, he prefers to go by Cassidy. They get there, and when they get there, Francis. They're seeing... Yeah? Mm-hmm. They're seeing all the debauchery that's going on. And the three of them are amused by this, obviously. As we would be. If we walked into a scenario like that, you and me aren't prudes. We wouldn't be like, we'd be like, fuck me, look at what they're doing over there. Holy shit, they're doing that. Is that legal? Do you know, that were just you and me, like a kid in the candy store running around getting a laugh out of everything we saw. And they kind of seemed to be the same way, but they were still figured in on their goal. They didn't realize themselves that they were being followed by this government agency.
Okay.
It kind of all went to a head because these three people had a lot of they were like us morally in what we thought was right and wrong. And while they were running around seeing all this fucking stupid stuff going on, thinking, Jesus Christ, these are just people with too much money in their hands, too much money and time in their hands. It was fine until the preacher found himself in a room where there was a camera and one or two adults and one little boy.
Oh.
And from that point on, all bets were off. The game was over. And the preacher, the Irishman, and the girlfriend decided, fuck these guys, and started knocking the shit out of everybody in the building. These people could fight. And apparently a huge brawl broke out, but DeSade himself was had his face smashed off of... Was it a bath? It was in a bathroom. Smashed his face in pretty fucking good. Killing him, I believe. Yeah, he was dead. In the meantime, see, this is the thing. You won't have heard of all this because this ties into a conspiracy. And this is what we're doing for the next 3 or 4 weeks. We're looking at a conspiracy, a huge fucking conspiracy. So there's a lot of stuff hidden, a lot of stuff covered up. And this would be one of those things because obviously once DeSade is out of the picture and these three are here, there's still a bunch of powerful people inside here that don't want their secrets. Yeah. And the government agency who are about to come in and try and fucking grab these three also do not want people knowing that they're around the place. So they come in with the local cops and they raid the place. Through the confusion... See, I can't say too much now. Because it'll give away stuff from the next episode. Through the confusion... Most of the three get away.
Most of the three, so 2.
And the government agency think they have who they want.
Okay.
That's all I can say so far about this.
Okay.
All I'll say is we will be talking about those three and this government agency a lot. And they're not even a government agency. It's government agency.
They're an agency.
They were telling everybody else they were a government agency. This is the grail. The people we will be talking about for the next 3 to 4 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks, definitely. I don't think it'll go past 3 weeks. But we will be getting in depth into these guys over the next few weeks. And it's interesting. It's fun. And it's if you believe it, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. DeSade was beaten to death. The police raid was fine, but nobody was actually charged for the whole fucking thing. And I believe that the Grail's answer to everything was just to kind of burn the place down and leave little witnesses of any importance and very little evidence that anyone had been there. And that was the higher ups who were involved were happy enough with that being
there was
the
not
answer
a whole
to
lot
the
of
question as well.
evidence.
You know, fine, you fucked up our little sex palace, but as long as you don't tell anybody,
we won't
tell anybody about you. And everyone was happy. But if you weren't at a certain... If you were one of the lower people in there or one of the sex workers in there, there's a good chance, if this is all true, you didn't get out of there alive.
Oh.
Because as we're going to talk about with the Grail for the next 3 weeks, they're not the forgiving type and they're not the ones to leave loose ends or to trust you when you say you won't talk.
Exactly. And so Jesus DeSade dies as he lived, swimming in a pool of his own fluids.
Nice.
Now, you might be asking why we chose this story this week and why replace a tale of religious conspiracy with one of sex, drugs, and debauchery. Well, it's because it's all connected. The classified government agents were not far from the government at all, but from Grail Industries, and the trio they were hunting would then be the team to take down this 2,000-year-old organization. But to hear all about that, you'll have to come back to us next week.
Just like I said.
Exactly.
Yes. You said it better.
Thank you. Until then, check out our Patreon for more great shows like the IAA bonus show, It's a Live Action, or our wrestling history show, Wrestling with Time.
Also, we have Amy's history show, Playing with Bones, and her mini monster bios, along with exclusive pics, videos, news, reviews, and all that is at patreon.com/the Horrorverse Network, and it is only $5 a month with a 7-day free trial, so you can try it out and see if you like it first. We'll be back next week with more tales from the Horrorverse. See you all next time. Same live time, same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love you. Bye-bye.
Really love you. Bye-bye.